Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Glenn. I wanted to film a short video talking about transitions in a live setting and give you the techniques that I use here at Awakening to help make sure that transitions are smooth and not awkward. We've all been there where we unmute a microphone too soon or we mute the band too soon and the sound just cuts out and it's an awkward experience for the people in the audience, the people on stage, and definitely for you behind the board. So let's dive in. I'm going to show you what I do here at Awakening to make sure that transitions are smooth all of the time and hopefully give you a little bit of tips and insight on what you can do when you're mixing to make sure that these transitions are smooth. When we think about transitions at Awakening, we're really concerned about one thing, and that's the handoff of the band to the speaker. And we want it to be smooth. And so for us, what smooth means is that the band is faded out slowly and the speaker is heard as soon as they step onto stage. Not before or not a few seconds after they step onto stage, but as soon as they step onto stage, and we want the band to fade down smoothly. Now the problem here becomes with the instruments or the band. So the band isn't just one vocalist and one guitarist that can be summed into two faders, but it is an entire drum set, a bunch of instruments, and oftentimes several vocalists. Now, we feed all of our instrumentalists and all of our drum mics and all of our vocalists into different buses here. So all of these signals are being fed into one of these faders. So in theory, we can turn all of these faders down with like a bunch of fingers and then turn up the fader of the teacher, but that gets kind of clunky because you're using all your hands here and one hand here, and it can be really easy to have your finger slip and mess up any of those transitions. So what do? Well, my solution to this issue is by using what's called a DCA. And well, what does a DCA do? A DCA is not a bus, so we're not feeding all of this signal to another fader over here somewhere that then controls the output of that signal, but we're actually using a controller to move all of these faders at the same time. And so we have a DCA over here on the right-hand side that I've set up. And essentially what this is doing is that it is moving all of these faders, or all the faders that you've linked to the DCA, at the same time as I move it down. So it kind of looks something like this. This is super helpful because you're not having to turn all of your buses down to make sure that the speaker, isn't being played over. But it also helps you maintain your bus mixes. And so once you're mixing your buses, you usually get a relatively static mix on them. And you like the way that the drum sounds in relationship to the entire instrument bus and the vocals in relationship to both of those. But what will happen if you don't use a DCA to control it all is that you will turn all these faders down and then suddenly forget where you've placed them. Sure, you can use presets to recall that, but you would have to make sure that you're loading the correct preset, and that is a lot more difficult, in my opinion, than just moving a DCA up and down. Okay, so what does this practically look like? I'm going to just play an example for you and let you watch me do this. Okay, so I'm going to pull in the volume here, and you're going to hear the band playing. Right, so there's a keyboard, pad, and a few other things. And the speaker's coming up on stage, so I'm going to unmute his microphone as soon as he puts foot on stage, and then start to fade that DCA down.
Last week we started this series, Controversial Jesus, talked about Jesus and politics. And one of the things we said, we're going through his famous Sermon on the Mount.
Great. And so that is an easy example of what you would do when a speaker is coming onto stage. To review, you take note of when the speaker is heading up to the stage, you find your mute group for that microphone, and you find your DCA for the band, and you turn your DCA down as the speaker is coming up onto the stage, not all the way down so that it's smooth, and then as soon as your speaker puts foot onto the stage, you unmute his microphone and turn the band DCA down accordingly. Now, one thing you're going to want to note is that you have to pull that band DCA up for you to hear the band once the speaker leaves the stage and there is more music. And so it's the same situation, but in reverse. You will mute the speaker when he steps off stage, and you will pull up your DCA. If you're watching this and you don't serve at Awakening, but you want to know how to set up a DCA, Behringer has really great videos on their Wing console on how you can actually do that. So I would highly recommend that you go over to their channel and they'll show you how to set up a DCA. Thanks so much for joining.